Hello everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the project that I chose for my statistics course project, and it's about the microplastics in our ocean, specifically the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean, looking at those two and comparing them. Now if we go to our research question, let me see, here we go. Alright, so for this research question I started out with, are the microplastics in the Pacific Ocean relatively larger than the Atlantic Ocean? I wanted to get an idea of which ocean is struggling the most with the microplastic pollution. For the null hypothesis, it would be the length of the microplastics in the Pacific Ocean is no larger than the microplastics in the Atlantic Ocean. And now for the alternative hypothesis, it's the length of the microplastics in the Pacific Ocean is larger than the microplastics in the Atlantic. And now if you look at the bottom, those are the two symbols that are used. The first one is for the null hypothesis, which H would be equal to the level of significance, and then the other one is the greater than the level of significance. Now the source of the data actually came from a website for the marine microplastic concentration. It came from the National Centers for Environmental Information, and the data that I was collecting was based off the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. The locations were also noted. They did latitude and longitude as well. So there were three methods that I saw that they were using. They were using the Newston net, the plankton net, and the manta net. And now all of these nets kind of help filter out the microplastics in the water and helps them to gain an idea of the concentrations. Now for the descriptive statistics, I had to compare two of the sample means. So the sample size for the Pacific Ocean was 22, and then we have the mean. If you look, we have the mean, the standard, the minimum, the quarterly, max, medium, and the median. And then we go to the second sample size, which is the 80. It was a little bit larger. They had more data on the Atlantic Ocean than they had more data on the Pacific Ocean, I apologize, than they had on the Atlantic Ocean. So just to clarify, the Atlantic Ocean had the sample size of 80, or of 22, and then the Pacific Ocean had a sample size of 80. Now, looking at the differences, you can kind of see that there is a bigger standard deviation with a bigger sample size, which is kind of expected. And then if you look at the graphs, a lot of them are in between 0 and 4 and 0 and 0.2. That's where most of the microplastic measurements lie. Now to interpret the confidence level, so we started out with a level of significance of 0.05 or 5%. So for the Atlantic Ocean, for the confidence interval, there is a 95% chance of the mean lying between 0.077, 481319, and 0.522, 518618. This is a wider confidence interval, which indicates less certainty on the mean of the sample. For the Pacific Ocean, there is a 95% chance of the mean lying between 2.203578439 and 6.196421561. Though this confidence interval is slightly narrower than the Atlantic Ocean confidence interval, this range is generally a little wider, and it gives it even more uncertainty. Now, for the results of the hypothesis test, remember the significance level was 0.05 or 5%. So the p-value that was calculated for a one-tailed test was 0.0293, and the p-value for a two-tailed test was 0.0586. Now, we are going to use the two-tailed test because it was a two-sample comparison. Now, the p-level is greater than the significance level, and with this information, we would reject the null hypothesis because there is not sufficient enough evidence to conclude that there is an actual difference. Okay, conclusion. With this study, there wasn't substantial evidence to prove the null hypothesis, but there wasn't a significant difference between the relative sizes of the microplastics in the Atlantic versus the Pacific. What this means is there wasn't enough data to conclude that the Pacific Ocean had a much higher concentration of microplastics than the Atlantic Ocean, and there is so much more research to be done about this, about all of the microplastics and realizing where the plastic pollution is generally lying and how to stop or prevent it. And this is my reference section. There were only a couple. I used the marine microplastic concentration, and then there was another one that was going about the microplastics in Lake Mead towards the Colorado River. And I thank you guys for listening to me and taking the time to go over this course project with me. Have a great day. Thank you.